Okay, so welcome the second episode of Chai Community and Coach, and now we have a very special person. My life also, I think he's one of the person who actually guided me more for my MVP community how it things works, and then from every year I'm in trouble something both professional personal he always hide me, always share the things what I can do for moving forward. So, sir, for think, namaste, sir, and
Namaste.
I'm so happy that you are very busy, but you takes time to with your again. Happy Father's Day again. So,
Oh, wish you the same.
and it was great talking to you. And think you just took time. We discussed last month that we want to do a session with you, this podcast, and I think I want to share that why is a different thing because we talk about three things. One is about your family, your personal thing which you do, your health thing which you have discovered, shared with me, that everything. And then we also talk about how you use community as a expanding and share with people, right? And this is a free of cost you're sharing with people for many years. Actually, I know for 6 years. And then maybe something which you maybe share with us about the monthly posts you did about the IoT thing which you did for Power Apps and those things.
Oh,
Maybe you can
sure.
share something on that. So I think we just like a very relaxed kind of thing. It's no question asked. There's no rapid fire. Just understand you. So maybe we can get started with that. So it's okay.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the kind words,
Yeah.
It means a lot.
Yeah.
And we've known each other since maybe 2019, 20
Y-
around there, right?
Yes.
2018,
It's
2019.
2018. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has been such a pleasure. And thank you for those words. It means a lot. It really means a lot. And I don't take that lightly because, we are all on some kind of a journey. And then whatever we can do to help each other at the end of the day is to me what matters. Of course, there's a journey. We accomplish this, that, and the other, professionally, MVP, this, that, and the other. But the thing is, how we actually do it makes a lot of difference to me. And along the way, I've been actually mentored by great people, right? So there comes a time in everybody's life when you say, hey, look, what can I do to be part of someone else's success, and to actually see you doing so well. I was thrilled beyond words when you got into Microsoft. That's like a joy that you experience for a friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
So things like that, right? So thank you very much. It means a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, so much, right? So just want to ask something from besides work, what you mostly do from maybe from the family's perspective, from your routine perspective, what you do? Because you mentioned you have become good, looking so great now. Because I've seen you. Because I think last year. I think one of the event I show you, and you were amazingly fit. Now you become fitter. You look like a Milan Soman for me right now.
Wow.
Yeah,
It is, thank you.
yeah,
And I do take a little bit of happiness, from that is, we get so enamored by technology, so busy with technology, this and that. Frank, and to me, as you know, my life revolves a lot around sensors and this and that. The greatest sensor ever known to man is the human body.
yes, yeah,
It is an amazing, amazing machine. And it actually, at different points in time, tells us a lot about what's going on with ourselves. The only thing is, are we ready to actually listen to it? We are so focused on listening to everything that's going on around us that be it either family or work or friends or whatever, that we don't find time to listen to our own bodies. So that has been a journey. It has been absolutely fantastic. So, basically, in my from since 2019, my avatar has been very different. So it and to understand that, you have to go back a few years, a few decades actually. So I started off in 1994, 95 is when I went to the States, and my education, my grad degree was in applied mechanics. In one word, what is called as stress analysis, fracture mechanics, things of that nature. So I did that. Then I got into automotive engineering. So I was with a Japanese company. So if you sit in front of your Toyota, the speedometers and the tachometers, which is essentially the brains of the car. So all of the inputs from the engine, the body, etc., come to the meter, and it's actually displayed to the user, kind of like what your Power BI is, like a
Yeah,
dashboard, right,
yeah,
for the
yeah,
executives.
yeah,
So if you're an executive sitting in front of the car, the instrument panel is the one that gives you all the inputs, so you can actually, like, take relevant action, right? So that's what I used to actually design. So then I got in front of customers a fair bit. So I said, you know what, I need a business degree because there are a lot of, like, words that are coming at me. I don't understand some of these words and it seems very interesting. So let me actually get a business degree. So once I got a business degree, I actually moved into, so when you're designing modules, like let us say you're designing a PC, you have your electronic components, you have your mechanical like housing and components, and then you have the software. All that becomes what is called as a bill of material, right? So I went into costing to understand. So I knew the engineering component of it. I knew the vendors. Now you're actually trying to put the costs, and then that becomes a very interesting animal onto it
mm,
itself,
mm,
right? So from there you get into P&L management because you're looking at pricing, deal structuring, getting into finance and so on and so forth. So my second journey was actually in corporate finance, which incidentally brought me to Microsoft. So for a number of years, from 2019 until 2016, or the 2008 until 2016, I was actually part of corporate finance. But the interesting thing about Microsoft corporate finance is that you interact a lot with data,
mm,
tons and tons of data, especially if you're in Redmond in a centralized role. You have 100 different subsidiaries, 45 different products, blah, 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 right? So it gets
yeah,
fairly deep. So along the way, you learn technology the same way a person on the data field actually, learns from the database up to your BI layer. So, and then I moved into sales operations, which, happened accidentally, incidentally maybe. And then I spent a couple of years there before actually getting booted out of Microsoft. So when I finished everything, I said, you know what? Wait a second. And then I started interacting with the community, right?
yeah, yeah,
So that brought my engineering roaring back. I was like, oh my God, there is so much richness over here.
yeah,
And then I wish I was able to actually talk to people who were in sales at Microsoft about all these things. And I could have helped so much instead of just like counting numbers. So that, brought it into sort of a sphere where I didn't know what was personal space and what
mm,
was
mm,
work.
yeah,
You
yeah,
follow me?
yeah,
Because even day before yesterday, I was literally up until 2 o'clock in the morning messing around with some sensor or the other. And so when you say, hey, what happens outside of work, I actually don't know because it has become like a mesh, one
yeah,
mesh,
yeah,
like, between my personal, what I do, and then, I mean, I derive enjoyment out. That's become almost like a hobby,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So you don't have to say, hey, Sanjeev, you need to work because it is what I do, right?
right,
So it is
right,
a little bit of that kind of a dangerous space, a mixture of hobby and work. Other than that, I have two kids. One is 13. He just turned 13. The other one's actually going to turn 6 in October. So no retirement for me. Yeah. So I'm
yeah,
so glad that I like what I do. And some of you, guys joke that I'll be like Warren Buffett without money, but gonna die like working. And honestly, that is the case, right? I will actually, it is so exciting, all these things that I will actually like, work till my last breath.
yeah, yeah,
So, oh, and then, with the kids kind of finally, they love basketball as a sport, other things as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm very actively involved in their lives. So, Wednesday, Fridays in the evenings, I go with them to basketball. MOE Evans is just up the road here in
Mm-hmm.
near Botanic Gardens. So it has a beautiful, what do you call it, track. So I do my walking there and then I pick up the ball and, shoot some baskets or whatever. So that's kind of how life is. And then along the way, you have to family commitments and then, your health,
Yeah.
and then getting the hot taba on my head from my wife for trying to ruin
Yeah.
her health,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like, hey, let me enjoy life a little bit. No, you shall not have this, you shall not have that. So that's generally what life is
Awesome. Awesome,
like right now.
awesome. Yeah, 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 yeah. So I have one question from you is that you work in USA,
Yeah,
Redmond, and then
yeah,
you came to Singapore,
yeah,
right? What is the mindset from the US business and personal, which you
yeah.
see difference in Singapore? How you feel different from there?
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly a very good question. There are multiple facets to it. One is when you work centrally in Redmond, by and large, the people around you are very senior people,
Mm,
right? So the lowest level amongst the business, I mean, you've been part of the business and
yeah.
Microsoft in Tanjong Pagar. The lowest level, in public sector, as an example, the business was actually a general manager.
Mm.
You follow
Oh,
me?
okay.
So they were fairly senior people already in leadership there, whereas a leader here, maybe in Tanjong Pagar, would actually be the leader of APAC, was the general manager. You follow
Mm,
me? Whereas
mm,
over there, general managers is the first point of entry kind of a thing. Of course, you'll have director level people reporting up to the general manager,
yeah, yeah.
but that is one thing you will see immediately in Redmond, is the level of seniority is very high. So the perspectives are very different. They've actually been in the field, they've done, the hard yards, in the field with the subsidiary and across like regions, and then they go to those places, and they would have managed some huge accounts. Like as an example, the person who was managing health was responsible in the UK for the NHS account,
Mm,
right? Which
mm,
is
mm.
monster account. So it is fantastic to get their perspectives as to what is actually going on. So that's one side of it. Then the product teams are literally sitting next door to you. So you
Mm,
actually hear from them as well. My neighbor, as an example, was very senior in the Microsoft team space,
mm,
right?
mm.
So he would give me some perspectives and whatnot. So that is one thing that is different. The other thing is when you look at locally, um, you know, you need to have a heart for people who are on, in the trenches. Like,
Yeah.
you have one person who's actually doing everything, let us say in Vietnam. So as you look at operations to supporting that one person, it is not about like inspecting what's going on with the deal. Hey, is the deal, have you had this and that with the customer, or the T's and C's done, is it tender out, these sort of things. But it's like, what can I do to, make things a little easier for you, right?
Okay.
So that is the perspective that bring to the table. The other thing I've noticed is, if you look at APAC as an example, there are a lot of people who come from everywhere.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
not only Singapore, right? So within APAC, you will have people coming in from ASEAN, you will have people coming in from India, you will have people coming in from Australia. So culturally, it is a very sort of interesting mix of people. So when you're dealing with people in the US, by and large, it is one kind of a culture,
Mm. Yeah.
whereas over here, it is not one culture. You're dealing with people who are coming in from Vietnam. You're dealing
Mm.
with people who are coming in, like, when I came in, the head of APAC actually was from Spain, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So one size does not fit
It.
all,
Yeah.
right? So you need to learn. And I had a very tough time initially learning that, right? Because your whole point of view is like a Redmond point of view,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
yeah,
Whereas not everybody has a similar experience as you. They have different kinds of experiences. So you need to change your mindset and be willing to give them the space to listen to their perspectives as to where they came from so you can adapt better, And I think that is generally, I tell myself every single day, about this. And that is what actually makes us richer, is keeping that open mind and then listening to people. Everybody has their own story. And then to say, how can I be part of your journey? We are both trying to do the same thing,
mm,
both you
mm,
and I, we have kids, we want our kids to do well, we want to do well, that kind of a thing. It's the same story. But the question is, if I understand you a little bit more, then I'll actually be able to help you and help myself too, as
yeah,
opposed to taking a bunch of metrics and say, thou shalt do X, Y, Z,
yeah, yeah,
which is sometimes what happens.
mm,
That I think is the big learning for me over the years that I've actually, adopted for myself is
sure,
give the
yeah.
person in front the room to actually bring their experiences over, learn from them, and then you actually make life together,
Yeah, yeah. I think is right now what I have noticed. This is my personal experience. Maybe you can have your insights as well. Is that people have become very um, doesn't want to listen to you. I just want to just speak, put their points first rather than things. And
Yeah.
I have seen this. You are exceptional because you listen and then you talk about that. But I've seen again, it's in different kind of markets. I understand. I think Philippines I worked in, and then people were very, very open and
Mm,
they're very lively, I think, what you're saying,
mm,
right? But I think some other market which I discussed, right, are more closed. They don't
yeah.
share those things and all, right?
No.
So
Yeah.
when you want to share something, they shut their doors, and then
Mm,
so that is something which I have to put just like you. I want to be more cognizant and give right things so that I
mm,
don't step out from
yeah.
their thing. But Philippines market and the Malaysia market, people are slightly more open. So I think the
Right.
mindset are different from different things, from different
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. You're spot on. And
yeah,
it's a journey, right?
yeah.
I was horrible. In Redmond, initially, I was horrible because I wanted to get my way perspective in. And then the other thing that I struggled with was communication. I was not as smooth as I am right now, right? It's hard work that I've actually put in over the years that has led me to speak the way I do. Is A, you have communication issues. So even though you want to express yourself, bring that empathy, whatnot, the way you speak, unfortunately, distracts people, and then it kind of goes off the topic, and people get distracted. What's he trying to say? And so on and so forth. When your mind is, hey, I'm trying to help you, right? Even if you want to help, the way it comes across, because your speech, you're not a native English speaker, that can be distracting to native speakers of English, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's one thing. Even if you actually correct your language a little bit and then get smooth and so on and so forth, the second component is the mindset, is to
mindset.
approach it from the point of view of the people
Yeah,
as opposed to purely from the technical viewpoint. And when I say technical, I don't mean software. I mean, anything. If you're in finance, there is a, hey, discounted cash flow or whatever. The technical element is secondary to actually the person in front of you, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
they're coming to you with some kind of an opportunity, some kind of a challenge. And then how do you actually do the handshake is very, very important. So that's what I've learned over a year. Absolutely spot on,
yeah,
right? And one other thing I'll tell you, cultures are one thing,
yeah.
right? Of course, Filipinos, Malaysians, so on. Sometimes it also is important to look at the person
Mm,
and
mm,
not broaden the conversation to a generic. And this is what I've learned through my life. I've had friends who are from St. Petersburg in Russia, from Ukraine, from Japan, from obviously ASEAN. It is the person. Of course, they'll have a cultural bias actually coming in from, different regions, but the person itself is very, very important, because each of us has our own story, you
Correct.
know.
Yeah.
Even in India, right? I mean, there could be a person who's actually a son of a CEO living in Mumbai in like an absolute, like, acres of land and a mansion. And there are people like me who's coming in from an absolute middle class kind of a background, and our lives are so different,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
so vastly different that, there is how do you have to find, like, commonality within that space.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to
Yeah.
me, it's the person, what I've learned over a period of time is, what we look at in Hinduism, right? Respect the individual divinity, there is
Individual.
God in everybody. Respect that, and then you'll be all right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So one thing I want to ask you, I think we bumped into one of the things which I met you in Starbucks many
Yeah,
years back, right?
yeah.
And then yeah, and I was that time not too keen to become Microsoft MVP, and I told you that so much work there and all. Yeah, give me some insights. Yeah, but I think as an MVP is giving lot of assistance, you can actually expand your horizons for sure.
Mhm.
But I want to get your insights as an I would say not a MVP, but think like as a community leader,
Mhm.
right? What do you think about as a community people? What they are actually looking forward, and what
Yeah,
they want to learn in from in
yeah,
basically what it is like just want to get knowledge or want to expand their to be in their career. What are your
yeah,
thoughts on the community
yeah. Sure, yeah.
perspective? Yeah.
Sure. Three things. One is obviously knowledge, right?
Okay.
So, as an example, you drove in, right? Some of the community members like Nandeep, right?
Mm.
I've looked at all your posts, right? You search for something, your names come up.
Yeah.
You follow
Yeah.
me? And there have been many times when I've gone in and actually looked at it, understood for myself what your perspective is, and incorporated it, right? Um, when I was doing the Power Platform community initially, there was, as you know, Jiva, and there are a bunch of
Yeah.
people. Oh man, I learned a lot from them.
Yeah.
A lot, right? So thankful. So, and then of course you have the gods, the Peter Duros and things of that. So you learn a lot. So that is one thing is, and the background to that is when I was a user, like, everyday user, I look around, there is no database person or application person sitting next to me,
Mm, mm.
right? When I was in engineering or when I was actually in finance, there was nobody sitting next to me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So who helps you? You're dying, you're suffering, and sometimes it literally is suffering because it's 3, 4 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
forecast is due actually at like, 7 in the morning with the head of APAC here.
Mm.
And I have to consolidate so many different Excel spreadsheets. At Microsoft,
Yeah.
like there
Yeah.
used to be Excel people, PowerPoint people. So finance used to be Excel people. You've got so many things to consolidate. I wish I actually knew data modeling the way, I started knowing later. Back in 2012 or 2010 or whatever, I would have been a different person. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Or when I
Mm.
was in engineering, I
Yeah.
used to get data from machines. I wish I knew what data modeling was, so I would actually design my master and transaction table as well, right? So the impact on the technical side is enormous, even in the age of AI, right? Everybody's AI will take everything. No, people are still important. I bow down to people like Dhruvan and you because there is a lot of knowledge there that I could apply and augment with AI. So that's one thing. The other thing is what I noticed with the community and especially the data community and so on, when I started off, was there were people who were so young. I was this was 2019, so it's probably 46, 47, around somewhere around there. And the people who came in were in their early 20s, maybe mid 20s, maybe, early 30s, so on and so forth. And in order for them to express themselves, actually go up on stage and express themselves, I found, wow, they have so much of knowledge and yet to be able to, how do you say, talk about that. And
Yeah.
then, to a public is was not simple, right? So
Right.
for me, it was like, hey, look, if I have that kind of knowledge, how can I actually like guide somebody, if you will, to be able to present themselves pretty well in these forums, right? Because there's so much richness, and everybody would benefit from that. So that was the second element of community, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then this is across the globe, right? You meet so many people from everywhere. There was a Russian guy who was there, Mikhail, if you remember,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
was there. He would come up, he would want to present, and so on and so forth. And he had very much the same problem, right? I mean, a lot of technical knowledge, but he gets up on stage, and then, the words don't come out naturally. And then you have to help people to do the bridge, right? So that was the second one, and to impress upon people that, hey, look, this is a community where nobody is looking over your shoulder. Your boss is not here. You
Yeah.
follow me? Your boss is
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
here. So, hey, be free, but at the same time, be thoughtful, be planful as to how you're going to actually present what you have to present, right? So that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing you can actually take away from the community.
Yeah.
And the third thing basically is the general camaraderie. I mean, for me, I haven't looked at community as like a business opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas there are some people who say, hey, look, and the names of people who come
Yeah.
up and say, hey, look, can we do something together from a business standpoint? Some people say that. Some people say from Microsoft itself, people say, hey, look, I'm going to get a bunch of MVPs to come help us with a hackathon, right? It becomes a marketing angle too, a
Marketing.
business angle, yeah,
Yeah.
business
Yeah.
angle too. For me, I'm not too fussed about that angle. I mean, that's not my main consideration. My main consideration community is how do you expand the community to everybody, not just the developers, but people like me when I was actually in my automotive engineering or in my finance. How do you invite those people in? Because if those people get to meet with us and that marriage happens, oh man, the opportunities are enormous, for us to share ideas and so on and so forth. So that's kind of what these are the three things that actually,
You,
mean a
you
lot from a,
Yeah, you put it all the things in a proper segment about the knowledge, the content, and the community part. Very good. I just want to tell you that one of the Microsoft event earlier, Microsoft Office was not in Tojam Paga, which is in
yeah,
Raffles Place. And that time, my first speech as a speaker in Microsoft Office, and Dharmendra were there, and a lot of people were
yeah,
there. And I spoke on Power BI event, something on that, and I was my first speech as a community. And you said that you're doing good, but when the event finishes, you told me that okay, it's very good. There's something here to focus on your tone, and your accent is okay, but thing is that the way you communicate this can be improved. So I got the point. Okay, this is the thing. I mean, exactly what about Mikhail he mentioned, right? Same thing that I have to. We have knowledge, but at times to articulate the things with the
yeah,
front of people, it's a
yeah,
totally different ball game.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Because life is it's a story, yeah, that you're trying
yeah,
to tell,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Not necessarily all the time we are thinking about the solution, this, that, problem, whatever. Sometimes it's just the fun of technology itself, but that itself is a story,
yeah,
you know
yeah.
so and then who are the speakers who we get attracted to a lot? People who can transport us somewhere else, right?
Yes.
Like, so for example, when you look at Amitabh Bachchan, it's
Yeah.
not only his voice, right? It's actually his entire persona, the
Persona.
way he builds the story, the way he tells the story, some humor, some incidents, anecdotes, so on and so forth. And in that, he takes you away to a magical world. Those are the people who we get attracted to. So to me, that's like, we need to be along similar lines. Of course, it's very hard for any of us to be like him,
Yeah.
but that's the attempt, is
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
way. And the
Sure.
community allows us to do that, right? It's
Yeah.
nobody is looking over you. You practice at your own pace,
Yeah.
but just be cognizant as you do this that, hey, I want to improve that area as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that is the beauty of community, right? It's not like there's no pressure, and
Yeah,
you can do at your own pace. That is something which
right,
people can't do, right? Yeah, yeah,
right, right.
yeah. Uh, I think I just want to get to the last segment is bit about the we can't talk about AI without any communication thing about a lot of things we are talking, right? And you
Yeah.
have done a wonderful thing. I think in your there was a blood test thing which you did on the Power BI sessions for the Delhi
Yeah.
community and a lot of things that, right? So anything you want to share with us about the thing which you want to share with the community? Maybe some live demo, something which you want to share with
Sure.
us. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So, one of the things that keep coming up, and you open LinkedIn every day, every single day, people are talking about, hey, there's this thing called AI. What does it actually do to people like us who are actually in tech? A lot of it, the coding component now is actually going to be done by AI. So where does that actually leave us, so on and so forth? Now, who knows? Nobody knows where is that's going, what it's actually going to really do. Nobody knows. But in the short term, to me, it's a matter of how do we actually incorporate that in whatever we do.
Mm.
So, let me share my screen with you really quick. I did just recently a post on testing drones as an example, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I make this a little bigger, so basically what it is, it's essentially a power app, right? And the Power App is actually trying to control a drone. This is basically on a stand. It's actually like, the drone's literally flying right now. If I stop and you can see that, the throttle control is fairly high. If I bring this down to a minimum, the drone's going to drop. So you literally have to hold it. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
The fundamental point over here is this throttle here is what is called as a PCF control. You know this, people like Dhruvan know this, but the largest segment don't know. It is essentially a custom component that you introduce within a low code component that make things look a little bit more nicer and understandable to the end user, right? Now, historically, in order to actually do a PCF component, you needed to do a lot of coding, like
Yeah.
scaffolding, and then you have your, TypeScript, so on and so forth, right? You need to do all that to actually get this done, which you would need a professional developer for, right? And they would have to spend X amount of time going back and forth with the user to actually get this done, right? Now, something like this can actually be done by an agent
Mm.
on your Visual Studio Code. Now, it would still mean that you would actually need to go to a developer to get the Visual Studio Code environment. But as an end user or somebody who's actually designing this interface, what they could do is literally do a sketch of, hey, my drone throttle control needs to look like this, right? It needs to have, when you have a fire engine, you have the chrome plate, which has these bars. You would have seen some of these. If you take your kit to the fire station here, you see
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So
Yeah.
let's say, hey, I want it to look something like, brushed aluminum, chrome, whatever. And then I want the graduations to be like so. And, this is what you want. Now, what you could literally do is if I go to my Visual Studio Code here, I have an agent on the right hand side. Now, clearly, Fable from Anthropic has now been taken off the market. This was actually, it says, Fable 5, right? But it's off the market right now. When I designed this was still available like a few days ago, a week ago,
Mm.
or something like that,
Yeah.
10 days
Yeah.
ago, right?
Yeah.
So you could incorporate this model, and then you have three choices. One is where you design it yourself. The
Mm-hmm.
second one is where it designs it, but at each step you actually approve what it's actually designed. And the third one literally is where you give it complete authority to do approvals of the
Mm.
steps. So
Mm. Mm.
it goes into an AI loop where if it makes an error, it self corrects and actually comes up with the right code. So much so that if I go in and basically say, how do you say, give me a preview of this, it goes away and then, gives you a preview. It takes a couple minutes for it to actually boot this up. And then you can literally see the output for yourself really quickly. In
Mm.
fact, if you do this as an agent, it'll actually show you the output by itself as well, right? So out here, so what I want to do is in this throttle control, I want to say, hey, look, I want to dynamically change the values to, let us say, I want this to be 1300. So the total now, the max value changes to 1300. I mean, why do I want to do this? the max control for the motor is 1900, but then that runs it really, really fast. But when I'm testing it, I don't want it to go beyond 1300. So I can
Mm.
dynamically change this. And there is my, knob, like how do you say, on your transmitter, like drone transmitter, you have
Yeah.
your knob, right? So this mimics that thing, right? And you can say, hey, basically the form factor is going to be a tablet or whatever, and then you're done, right? And then
Mm.
once you bring it to your Power Apps, incorporated within your Power Apps and so on and so forth. And literally at home, you can actually test it out, right? I'm literally testing this at home, and this whole thing is running literally at home. You see,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
You're
So
holding it, right? Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
I'm not holding it now. So it is running free,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
when I bring it down all the way, then the motor kind of like, stops almost,
Mm.
right? It's very low speed. Now I need to hold it. If I don't hold it, it basically will drop, right? The whole
Mm.
drone will drop, you see. But
Mm.
that without going anywhere, I mean, normally what would I have to do? I would have actually like, literally here, I would have gone to the field and tested it. Now I'm testing it right at my window, because I
Mm.
can get GPS. Otherwise, I don't get GPS inside my
GPS.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here I
Yeah.
can get it from the window. So I can test it. So the point being that you can combine AI in your work processes, whether you want to actively do it as part of orchestration through an agent and then do everything through an agent or
Mhm.
multi-agent scenarios, or in cases such as this, where I want a visual. You follow me? When
Mm.
I'm
Mm.
flying a drone, I don't want the agent to do everything for me. I want to know where in Singapore is this agent? I mean, is
Mhm.
this drone? Because it's right now in Orchard. I mean, if I go to any other location, I can have like a waypoint and then make the drone fly along a waypoint. You follow me?
Mm. Mm.
So that is visual. So I need an app, right? And then instead of actually developing an app on GitHub and then doing all the scaffolding, this, that, and the other, and tomorrow somebody asks me to make a change, and you have to change so many things. Here,
Mm.
Power Platform gives you the platform.
Mm.
On
Mm.
that, you do whatever little things you want to do, which all is helped by AI. And then this is familiar to you. Your Power Apps is very familiar to you.
Yeah.
So then
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
add those like components and out into production. And then you know what to change, where to change very well because you're coming through history, right? So that's
Mm.
one example of what I'm trying to do here. Another one, which is an interesting one actually, and I think I have spoken with you about this, is on my phone as an example. I have I'm gonna see if I can minimize this guy. Minimize everything here, right? So on my phone, and how do you say, let me know how much time we have and I'll accommodate. So if I go to and this is something that I've asked my mother to actually incorporate. Okay. So this is literally an ohm meter. The point is, the idea here is one of the things I've realized through this whole health experience is in order for your BP is an end result, blood pressure is an end result, right?
Yeah.
For your blood pressure to be normal, of course, what you put in your mouth is very important, right?
Mm.
Your
Mm.
diet is supremely important in order for your output to be good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's one. Equally, how stressed you get in everyday life makes an enormous difference in your blood pressure that people don't talk about. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the way you respond to people, right? People will say all kinds of things about you, but that doesn't define you. That's what other people are saying, right? Some of it is true, some of it is absolute nonsense, right? But the thing is, how you respond to other people is very important, not because of the external factor, but your body gets trained, and that mental strain results in high BP
Mm. Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
and that is an
Absolutely.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that is a very important factor. Some people are cool as a cucumber. My dad, nothing. I mean, of course he gets excited, but on the average he's fine, no problems, cool as a cucumber, right? My mom, on the other hand, is a very different person. Even without you saying something about her, you just call her name out, she gets very stressed. Oh my God, somebody is actually calling me. Wonder what's happening, right? So what I've actually made her do is first recognize that there are certain frequencies in the world that are very calming, and we know it through our Indian system. You
Yeah.
follow me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I were to, maybe I should stop sharing, and but I'll, like, I won't stop. Let's keep the flow going. If I were to press this guide, it's going to give you a tone that's about 145 hertz as a frequency.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if I press this, you know, it says, okay, so that tone is 145 hertz. Once I have that guide, I can calibrate the sound in my room, like how Teams does it, on a Teams
Yeah.
call, it says take out the background noise. It's the
Yeah.
same, phenomena. And now I can start chanting, right? I can say, Om. So when I do that, it basically tells me that my frequency is about 128 hertz, which is a fundamental frequency. And then basically it captures the duration of my chanting. You follow me?
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
idea here is for us, we have no issues. You and I, we are young, relatively young, no problem. But for my mom, who's 85, about 8 months ago, if you ask her to chant Om, she can only do it for 3, 4 seconds. That's it.
Mm.
She'll say Om, and that's it, right?
Mm. Mm.
Through repeated chanting of our mantras as well as this Om, she can actually do about 15 to 20 seconds right now.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So that's an
Yeah.
increase in lung capacity. That's an increase basically in like her capacity basically to tolerate like stress,
What about
every
the mental state? Is it like also impacted if you do the lot of chanting?
exactly,
Okay.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
Because the idea is, so here's the leap of faith. We know it is scientifically proven that 145 hertz calms your mind. It's scientifically proven, right? So at the end of the day, you've had a hard day, let us say, and then you come back home and then you listen. You not listening is one thing, chanting. You just sit down in a room, like turn off the light, and then say Om, like, repeatedly for like a few minutes. Trust me, by the time you go out, you will feel calm.
Mm. Mm.
Whatever is impacting you will be history. It goes away and your mind is centered, so that brings your blood pressure down. So calming the mind, yes, known fact. Whether it brings the BP down, that is a bit of a leap of faith. I don't know how much research is out there. For me, for my mom, it's worked.
Mm.
you know
Mm. Yeah.
so I do prayers every day. I do Sanskrit prayers every day, right, with my kids. And I see the benefit to my kids. Are jumping up and down and they do this, and all of a sudden they seem to be fairly grounded.
Mm.
You follow
Mm.
me? And I do about, we have this thing called shlokas.
Yes. Yeah.
So I do about 6 or 7 of them, you
Mm.
know. That
Mm.
also builds your culture, so on and so forth, but that's a separate point. But I do it with my parents too,
Mm.
right? With
Mm.
my mom too, every single day, right? And then I use this to actually measure, the impact, right? And then periodically, not every day, but once a month or once in 2 months, I'll ask her to do this and say, hey, how long have you been able to do?
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
Because she has it on her phone,
Yeah.
right? There's that. So it is a real benefit, if you will, to people who are older, who we normally call as elderly and whatnot, our own culture. And then it's actually like, so beneficial. Now, can it benefit other cultures? Absolutely. For the Christians, they have Gregorian chants. For Islamic people, they have their own chanting and so on and so forth. But the uber point is that a physical phenomena that you're capturing, and then like, you see the benefits. So this is the other thing that, I worked on. And then, I mean, it is not on Play Store yet, but it'd be very kind if, at one of these days I will actually like publish this. It'll be very kind if we could, especially for our kind of people, Aro, if you know
Yeah.
what I mean. I know
Yeah.
where your last name comes from.
Yeah.
So for our kind of people, we've been used to it for centuries.
Yeah.
You follow?
Yeah.
except that in today's world, we don't remember that, the impact of it. But the thing is, especially for our kind of people, if we could incorporate something like this, forget about the meter part.
Mm.
That is for more or less elderly people. But even the chanting and so on and so forth, it makes us a lot calmer, a lot more tolerant. Listening, you remember you mentioned listening, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Helps
Yeah.
us actually listen better and so on and so forth. So these are some of the things that I've been kind of working on.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, I was amazed that this is your own app, is it? The
Yeah, yeah,
app?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah, awesome,
yeah.
awesome. I think it's come into the Play Store. I think me and Dravid will be the first person to buy that app or do use this thing.
Oh,
It's
it
really
is.
amazing,
Thank you.
amazingly good.
It is simple and it is designed for people like us,
Yeah, yeah.
especially actually like people like you,
Mm,
because for me, hey, I'm dumb enough to like what I do,
mm,
right?
mm,
So I'm living the dream. There is no stress at work per se,
mm,
right? For maybe not for Dhruvan as well, but for you, you're actually working for a manager, right?
mm,
There is a
mm.
manager, and then you will have a chain of command.
Yeah.
Not every day is it going to be blue sky,
No, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
sun, right?
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes technically you may be perfect, but there'll be so much of like stuff that you
Mm,
will actually have to manage. And that can play on the mind, right? And
yeah,
you know how it was at Microsoft, right? I
yeah, yeah.
mean, here I'm telling you, 2015 through 2017 was a very stressful time for me.
Mm,
Very,
mm,
very stressful, for various reasons. And if that had continued, and there are some people who we know,
yeah.
okay, I won't take names here, who have actually had serious health issues,
Yes. Yeah.
so much so that they've had to had stents in their, like, arteries and all that.
Mm, mm.
And if you look at them, they look very healthy, but what's going on inside is all this buildup of cortisol and whatnot that is causing issues, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In those situations at our age, something like this might come in handy, and more so for our parents.
Yes, very important. Yeah,
Yeah,
very.
after 65, I think it is very, very important for them to kind of seriously manage their mental state,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
So I think this session is more into kind of satsang for me, to understand from the guru that what things happens and
Oh,
all,
I'm no
right?
guru. Yeah.
Yeah, but thing is like you are. I keep telling in the all my sessions that you are my mentor, at least for
Oh,
me.
thank you.
Everything which is I understand some issues I face, personal, professional, I that things and all. So I don't take much time. It's a family time. It's Sunday time, right? I just want to is a one note
Mhm.
to the community so that people understand, right? Something not about AI, something for the health or something which is from the thing want to say something to the community. Something center, something want to share something with the community.
Sure, two things, one
Yeah,
is you live only once.
yeah,
At least I know that,
yeah,
from what I know, live only once, right? So
yeah.
enjoy the ride,
Yes, yeah.
no matter what, just enjoy it. And one day, if you notice things are a little hard, things are a little depressing, there are a lot of news around what's happening with people in the market, people are
Mm,
getting laid off. All that is like clouds. One day
yeah,
it rains, the next day it's going to be sunny, right?
yeah, yeah.
So let those things be aside. Just enjoy your life. You're so lucky of all the animals, insects, whatnot. Somebody has chosen us to be a human being,
Human being, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
enjoy the ride is one thing. The other thing is, over a period of time, there are so many people who have helped us. I'm so thankful to all the community members, you, Dhruvan, Jeev, so on and so forth. I've learned so much. At some point, try to give back,
Mm, mm,
is extend the same help to someone else. And, there are so many people who are going through the clouds, if you will.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then whatever little, while at Microsoft, one of the things I noticed was this MCT,
Mm,
right? So many talented people, and they had no avenue to become an MCT.
mm,
Hey, let me help you.
yeah, yeah.
I have within my reach, I can do something. Let me try to assist, right? And then you would have noticed when somebody became an MVP initially, like they go on LinkedIn and are so thankful, so happy, right?
Yeah.
So, for me, it is the joy of seeing somebody being happy,
Yeah.
that itself makes me happy, to
Yeah.
see somebody so thrilled about, hey, so those are two things,
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, sir. I mean, I say this, sir, because I think it's it is respect, like,
Oh, so
just like a parents, right? It's something like I've kind of think that something which is people are lucky, right? Like me, I'm lucky that I have someone I can rely on anytime, which I can not during sleeping time, but at least so I have some people I can rely on, both professionally and personally, and we have talked a lot
yeah.
personally and professionally. So I think I'm amazingly lucky and happy. There's somebody like you who are keep guiding us, just not me, but all the people across the community and also across the globe as well.
Sincere, thanks, for saying that means a lot. And, likewise,
Yeah,
right? I learn from you as well,
yeah,
every time we talk, learn from you as well. I, look at your videos. I'm so thankful for the Delhi community.
yeah,
There's so many
yeah,
amazing people who come in and present their point of view. I learn from that.
yeah,
So equally thankful, yeah.
yeah. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, and have a great evening. So,
You
bye
too.
bye, bye
Enjoy
bye,
the rest of the
bye
weekend.
bye,
Bye
bye bye,
bye.
bye. See you.
Cheers.
Bye.